Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be introducing MongoDB. So MongoDB is a NoSQL database which allows us to store our data on a server running somewhere else as opposed to storing our data in an object or array as we've been doing. And the NoSQL part of it means that we can store it as JSON objects, so it's not tables as in a traditional SQL or SQL database. We can store it as JSON, so this would be valid information that we can store in MongoDB. So we'll cover more on that in a few moments. So the first thing we'll do is we'll figure out how to install MongoDB and get it running, and then we'll run some basic commands on inserting new users into our database and then retrieving those users' information and displaying it. So we're not going to be using this code here anymore. So the first thing we'll do is, I'm using the code from the previous tutorial, by the way, so I'm going to get rid of this helper stuff just for the sake of this tutorial. So I got rid of the code for the helper, and I've deleted the JS folder we created in the previous tutorial. So we'll make sure everything is running. We'll do nodemon app.js, run it, and there we go. So everything's working. Whoops. Oh, that's old. So if we go to user Robert, okay, it works. Movies 5, okay, everything's working. So we'll cancel it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're on a Mac system right now, and so we're going to install MongoDB using Brew. So you can check if you have Brew by running the command Brew, and it's a package. Brew is a package manager for OS X. So I have it installed. You can see I have some commands here. If you don't have it installed, you can actually go to this link, brew.sh, and you can run this command here. You might have to write sudo before it to get permission, but you'll run this command to install Brew. And if you're on a Windows machine, then you can just Google Windows install MongoDB, and it's probably slightly easier because you get an executable and you can just run it, double click it, and install it that way. So we'll install. So we have Brew. I have Brew installed, and so to install MongoDB, we'll do brew install MongoDB. It's that easy. Okay, so it'll install, but you can see I already have it installed, so it gave me a warning. Okay, so once we have MongoDB installed, we're going to create a directory where the default database information will be stored on our computer. And so I've opened up a new tab here, and by default it's created in a folder called /data/db. So what we'll do is we'll do make directory -p /data/db. And now I'll list the files here, and you can see I have data. So you run this command, and I went back all the way to, so I was in my documents folder. So now you can see I have data. So if you go into data, cd data, and then list, cddb, list, and you can see I have a bunch of files here that MongoDB requires. So we'll go back now. Okay, so I made a directory, and now you may need to set permissions to have access to read and write into that directory. And so what you'll do is you'll do sudo -r, and then the username of your computer. So if you're on a Mac, you'll run this command, and then /data/db. So we're giving permission to this folder. We're giving all permissions to it. You might have to enter your password, and there you go. Okay, so everything's working. So we've installed MongoDB with Brew, and we created the default directory where the information will be stored for MongoDB, and we gave it permission. So now let's try and run MongoDB. So to run it from the terminal, we're going to use the main, the core database process. So you're going to run MongoD, and if you run this, you can see that MongoDB started on port 27017. So if we actually go to localhost, this port, it looks like, okay, so we can see Mongo is running. We just can't access it over that via the URL. So Mongo is running right now, and we're able to actually create a database. So in MongoDB, the typical lingo you use in SQL SQL databases is a database contains tables, and those tables contain rows of information. In NoSQL databases like Mongo, we're going to be actually creating a database will contain collections, and the collections will store documents. So a collection of documents can have a bunch of random JSON information that's not related to each other. So the higher level view is a collection of JSON documents. So we're going to create a database. So let's cancel the MongoDB server right now. Okay, so we have it installed and we were able to run it. So now let's actually try and use it in our code. So the first thing we'll do is we'll do var mongo equals, we're going to require it. So actually we'll call it var mongo client equals require. And now you can see in node modules we have MongoDB. So now we'll do var require MongoDB, and then we're going to run it mongo client. Okay? And then we're going to set the URL of the server we're going to be running. So the URL is MongoDB localhost, and you can see the port we were running over before. So here the port was, where is it? Here, let me run it again, MongoD. Port 27017. That's the default. And then we're going to create a database, and we'll just call it testing. So this is the URL of the Mongo server, and then we're going to create a database called testing. Okay, so now let's see if this works. So we're going to, here where the app starts running and it listens on port 3001, we're actually going to first connect to Mongo and then run our app. So what we'll do here is we'll do Mongo client, and we'll call the connect function. Connect. And now we want to connect to a URL, so we're connecting to this URL, comma, and then function, error, and then database. So if we connect successfully, we should have access to the database. So now what we'll do is, so let's actually we'll create a global variable called db, and once we connect to the database, we'll assign this variable to the database so that we can access it throughout the whole app.js file. So when we connect, we'll do console log connected to Mongo. And then we'll set db equal to database. And then we'll call app.listen. So then only then, once we're connected to the database, will our app start. Okay, so now let's actually try and run this. So I have in a separate tab, I'm running MongoD, and it's running on port 27017. And now I'm going to run nodemon app.js. Oh, whoops, I misspelled require. Let's try it again. Connected to Mongo, server started. Awesome. So now if you run this, we're not actually accessing any data, but we're connected to Mongo. So let's go to here. And you can see connected to Mongo, server started. So we successfully installed Mongo, and we connected to this MongoDB database. We created a database called testing. So now we can start inserting documents within a collection into our database. So let's get started doing that. So what we'll do is we're going to get rid of this code we've written here. So this was to show how you can create more complex routes. So we'll get rid of that, and then this. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create a form. So this page, we'll get rid of this information as well. We don't need it anymore. Okay. So now what we're going to do is on this page here, we're going to create a form so that you can enter in user information, store that in MongoDB, and then when you go to a page like user/Robert, it'll get the information from the collection. So let's get started. So in the main index.ejs file, so actually, okay, so let me get rid of this. So you can see here we're rendering, I'll get rid of everything except the render function. So here we're rendering this template, index.ejs. So let's get rid of everything in here and create a form. So form action equals this, and then method equals post. So we're going to be posting information. Input type equals text. Name equals name, and then placeholder name. And then we'll require it. So we'll input a name, age, and we'll do occupation. Occupation. And then input type equals submit, value equals submit. Okay, so we created a really basic form now, and when we go to this route, we'll just render it. So everything's running, Mongo's running. Okay, so if we reload this, here you go. So you have name, age, occupation, submit. So let's actually add breaks after it. Break, 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 reload it. Okay, name, age, occupation, submit. So this isn't the best looking form, but it'll get the job done for what we're trying to do. So right now when you write something in here and you click submit, it doesn't know where to post it to. So we created action equals and then this slash. So we're actually going to take this and copy it and change the get to a post. Post here, and we won't render anything, but let's console log posted. Okay, so we reload this, enter in some information, submit, and here you can see posted in the console. We console logged it and it posted. Okay, so what we want to do now is take this information and store it in Mongo. So let's, oops. Okay, so we need some way to access the form information. So we want to access the form name, the form age, occupation, etc. So we're going to be using a node module called body parser. So we'll cancel this node-mon process, and we'll do npm install body parser. So it installed it. And now you can see in node modules we have body parser, EJS, express, MongoDB. And body parser will allow us to take the information submitted in a form and access those parameters. So now that we've installed it, we're going to actually require it. So here we'll do, copy this, and we'll do body parser equals require body parser. Okay, and now we need to let these functions for the body parser be used for our Express application. So we're going to do app use body parser, and then .json, and then app use body parser .url encoded, and then we'll pass in the parameter extended equals true. And I'll post links to documentation about how the body parser works, but these are the basic functions we need to get it up and running. So once we have this set up, now what we can do is we can console log rec.body. And we'll actually, so this information, we will JSON parse it. Okay, so now when the app is posted to this page, when the form is posted, we'll console log the information being passed into req body. So request body, we're able to access this information because of the body parser module. And then we'll re-render the same page. So we'll run this, connect it to Mongo, server started, and now we'll input Daniel, age 50, occupation, coder. Submit. Oh, whoops. What did I mistype? Console log JSON parse. So let's actually console log rec.body. And there's some random information. Submit. Okay. Whoops. And now, okay, here you can see now we have the information. So I was using the wrong JavaScript function. So here the information was posted as an object. So name, s, age, whatever, occupation, whatever. So now we can do something like console log rec body name. Reload this page and we'll do Daniel, age 50, occupation, coder, submit. And in the console you see Daniel. So we're able to access the individual parts of the form now using our request.body. So now let's take this information and store it into a collection in Mongo. So now what we'll do is within here, within this post function, we're going to post into Mongo. And this is what we're going to do. So let's get rid of this. We'll actually console log req.body just to make sure we're getting the information. And now we're going to create a collection. So var collection equals db. And we're able to use db because once we connected, we set db equal to the database. So we'll do db.collection and we'll call it collection. Not a fancy name, but we're just testing this database. So we have a database called testing, and within there we have a collection called collection. And this will store our user information. So you could call this users, for example, but we'll just call it collection for now. Actually, let's change it to users. So we have a collection called users, and now we can, on this collection, call MongoDB functions. And I'll post a link to an API for all of the MongoDB collection functions. So we'll do collection insert 1. We're going to be inserting one piece of information. So what this does is it takes a parameter now, what we're inserting, so it'll take an object, and then a callback function. So we're going to insert, let's actually set this equal to var user equals rec body, and then console log user. So we're going to insert user, and then error result. So it takes in two parameters, error and result. So when the user has been inserted, we'll do console log user has been inserted, and then we're done. So what we're doing here is we're inserting the user, but we're not actually checking to make sure if the user has already been inserted or a similar user exists. So let's actually try and run this code though. Okay, well, don't reload. Okay, so Daniel, age 50, coder. So now if we submit, user has been inserted, and this information has been inserted. But the reason the page is still loading here is because we're not rendering any page. So we'll actually re-render, once it's been inserted, we'll re-render the index page. Okay, so now let's insert another user, Robert, age 40, occupation, student. Submit, and it's been reloaded, and here it has, user has been inserted, and this user has been inserted. So now what we want to do is see a list of all the users we've inserted. So we're going to create another route, app get list. Actually, let's do this later. So let's get the information for a user since we already have this route. So user name. So this is what we'll do. We're going to find a user in the MongoDB collection now and display their information just as we were here in this EJS file. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to retrieve the information differently. So let's push this code aside now, and we'll do something very similar. So user is actually request params name. So it's this name we're inputting. And now we're not going to call the insert one function, we're going to call the find function. So we have to get the same collection users, and now we're going to do collection find one, and we're going to find where name equals the user you're searching for. So we're going to find one this, and now we're going to call in Mongo, when you get a bunch of information, a bunch of data back, it actually points a cursor to this information, and you can filter through it. We actually want to get the whole thing and convert it to an array. And this takes a parameter to array error result. So result now should return an array of all the users where their name is equal to the user you're searching for. So let's actually test that this is working. Console log result. And then we won't render any page. So let's see if this is working now. Collection find one name user, convert it to an array. Okay. And let's get rid of this code here. Okay. So we'll start the server. Okay. So now we have two users entered into the database, as we saw. So we entered name Daniel and name Robert. So let's actually get user Robert. Oops. Find one is not a function. Did I MongoDB find one? Okay, so I mistyped the function name. Oh, whoops. So I don't actually want to call the find one function. So we're gonna actually call the find function, and the find function will return an array of users matching this parameter. So we could actually change this and call find one, and then we don't have to call to array, but let's stick to how the basic Mongo tutorial shows us how to do it, and we'll call find. So now if we go to user Robert, perfect. So now we get the information in an array. So there's one user in our database. So this ID was automatically generated by MongoDB. And then we have name, age, student, everything we entered in. So now in our code, this is what we can do. We will do, let's actually get the code we had before. So now when we find the user, there found equals result 0. We'll get the first user. And now we're going to pass in, so we'll do if, so result will be an array of users that it found. So we'll do if result.length is greater than 0. We know that a user exists. Similar to how here we were doing if check. So if it's greater than 0, we know a user exists. Oops. And we'll do found is result 0, and then we're going to render the user page. Name will be found.name, and the rest of the info will be found. So this is an object of the user information now, and then if the user is not found, otherwise send user does not exist. So we can get rid of this code now. And then the user file takes in name, and then info age, info, etc., etc. So info will be found. So now let's see if this works. Perfect. User Robert, age 4 years old, occupation. Okay, so we got the age and we didn't get the occupation or hobby, and that's because, so you can see here when we print the user information, the form here when we're inserting into the collection, insert one user and user's request body. So it takes this whole thing and turns it into an object. So name, age, and occupation. We don't have hobby, but also we didn't use the word occupation. We used occup. So in our user EJS file, let's actually change this to info.occup. And now if we reload it, we see occupation student. And we didn't have a hobby field. So let's actually enter that in. Occupation, and then hobby. Hobby, and then the placeholder, hobby. Okay. And now the interesting thing about Mongo is that it doesn't matter if some pieces of data in the collection, so if some documents have a different structure than the other ones. So in this collection, you can see we have 2 users already, Daniel and Robert, but let's input someone else. So we'll put Jane, age 50, occupation, coder, hobby, swimming. Submit. And now we can do user Jane. And we have everything we need. And then it should console log the information when it's found. User has been inserted, and here you go. And so, yeah, so we basically just covered 2 ways of how to insert and find users in Mongo. And now let's quickly create a route to show all the users. So we'll do app-get list. Function request respond. And now let's just console log. This is what we'll do. So we'll actually collection find. So collection find, you can see here we are passing in a query. Find all documents with the name of user, and user is this parameter we're passing. So let's actually take this code. But we don't have a parameter. So we're getting the collection and we're finding, and if we don't pass in a query, it'll find all the documents in that collection. So now we'll do if result, we can get rid of this and this. So now it'll find all the documents in the collection, and now let's just print them out. So console log result. And then we should render a page because it's going to be hung up on the page, so we'll just render this index file. Okay, nodemon. So now we have user Jane. Let's go to list. So list will generate this form again. And here you can see in the console printed out all the documents we have in this collection called users. We have name Daniel, name Robert, name Jane, and you can see that the structure is different for some of them. Jane has an extra field here, hobby swimming, and these 2 don't. And so now with Mongo, you can also call functions like update, find and update. You can remove documents from the collection. You can do a lot of great things with Mongo. So I'll post a lot of interesting links below the video as to how you can improve on your Mongo coding and learn more about the MongoDB functionality. But yeah, I'll also allow you to download this code that the code for this project we just created, so you can play around with it. So yeah, we basically downloaded Mongo, we set it up to use it in our Express application, we connected to it, and we called some basic functions, insert, find, and we were able to create a simple form where users can enter information. You can see all of the users here, and you can also see information for a specific person. So we basically took the application we had before, where we hard-coded the user information into this file, and now we're storing it in Mongo. In the next tutorial, we'll cover more MongoDB functions, and we'll cover interesting modules you can use on top of MongoDB.